right. Well, hey guys, welcome to our Soul Care Conversations. And with me today is one of the most special people in my life and in the work of soul care, in that Daniel Norris, who, yes, just flew in from Hawaii, was the first person that when I was leaving my former work at Glue, I was reaching for where do we pick up the threads of what soul care has been over the years and make a way into the future to serve as many people as possible. And you knew some of my kids, and my kids were like, Daniel Norris is the best expert on HubSpot and all the things. So if I recall correctly, through a little texting and emailing, our first conversation about soul care stuff happened while you were on a layover at an airport in Seattle or something.
That's right. I think it started on LinkedIn.
Okay. That's appropriate.
Yeah, I think it was LinkedIn. You reached out and you're like, you do HubSpot stuff, right?
I thought you worked for them.
Worked for HubSpot. Yeah, I get that sometimes just because it's on there, because I partner with them. And then, I was traveling. At the time, I was doing a lot of traveling, training and consulting with different organizations, and I was in transit, and I was like, I have this layover. I'll be in Seattle on the way to, I don't know where I was going. And I remember finding a little booth.
Yeah, I
there.
can still see the background.
Back in my Delta days, I've now switched to United.
Oh, well,
I feel like a traitor, but it's okay.
They'll
Thankfully,
forgive you.
part of that is because of their wonderful direct flight to Denver.
To Denver, I know.
And then on to Boston, which is also...
Because that's where you spend a lot of time. Yeah.
So, we jumped on a call, and that's where it all started. And I was like, I think I could do some stuff and help you.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. You've had, I mean,
come a long way.
Just to give a sense of how much help you have helped with. I mean, you've rebuilt our whole website multiple times. You've helped our marketing and our communications and guided. You know, I'm a person that has like 1,000 ideas a minute.
Just 1,000.
Just 1,000. And it's a bit much. And you've just helped, like, say, great idea, but like, let's keep doing the thing we talked about last week. No, it's not that bad, but maybe. And you've just been you've been a true teammate, not only in the mechanics of it, our mailing list has grown quite substantially since then. And it's really been because of your strategic understanding of how to communicate and how to see communication as a form of ministry. So we'll get to that in a little bit. I want to let people get to know you a little bit more about your background, your history, like where you grew up, and the ministry intersections that you've had, especially with my sons initially, and then how we met. So maybe, because then it does transfer, what I was going to say is it transfers into why you care about the topic of soul care as well, not just the mechanics of how we serve people. So, your life has really been in missions and in ministry for a long time. So tell us a little bit about your journey through the different locations, but then your calling into ministry. What was that like?
Like where to start and how to make it concise / I guess we could go deeper into whatever parts. But to start, one of the confusing, the initial starting point for me that people don't, it gets confusing when you hear my accent, is that I'm from New Zealand originally.
Yeah.
My parents have the accent, and so I still proudly say I am a Kiwi. I am from New Zealand. It's such a big part of my DNA and culture, and obviously my upbringing. I've spent lots of time there, but never lived there myself long term. And I still throw a few words out there, especially in the work that I do. You'll probably hear throughout this podcast, I'll use the word process. Not process. So that's my big tell that I'm very proud of. I never want to switch. I think there was one time where I almost switched. Someone caught me and I was like, no, I got to hold on to my one little piece. Anyways, I was born in New Zealand and born into missions.
I was going to say,
a missionary kid.
Family legacy.
And so
massive.
My parents they didn't meet in Youth with a Mission, YWAM, the missions organization, but they got married and started the family both in YWAM. And when I was a baby, they sort of felt a call to the field and went and moved our family, myself and my just older brother at the time, to Hong Kong, where we lived for about 3.5 years. And my younger brother was born there. So
I don't think I knew that part. Jordan was
Jordan,
born.
so he's helped and done a bunch of work with Soul Care as well.
Yeah.
Born in Hong Kong. And then after that, moved to Kona, Hawaii, which is where is the largest YWAM training campus is based. And so that's really was my home as a kid, where I grew up, where I went to high school, and had a very, I guess, abnormal missionary kid upbringing, in the sense that I wasn't it was a foreign country to where my parents were from, but
Yeah, to them it was a foreign
to
country.
them it was more foreign, but for me it was just like, I kind of like, oh yeah, we lived in a house down the road and this was my parents' job, and I went to school and had friends and surfed and went to the beach, and like didn't realize it at the time, but I guess as an adult now moving back there, I'm just very grateful, obviously, for being able to grow up in such a special place, for sure.
And so you're a largely sort of kind of normal American suburban almost.
Yeah, somewhat,
childhood.
but
yeah,
then the dynamic of it being Hawaii is quite different.
That's
than
not American. Yeah. All right.
We won't get into that. But,
Yeah.
but
like
that
not,
different.
Not
difference.
what you think of in the mission field.
No.
That's what I
We
mean,
weren't in some remote village, or I wasn't like, flying around the world all my childhood, or being dragged around, that kind of thing.
Right, or
those kinds
off
of
at a boarding
ways,
school, which is often
definitely not
where
off at a
people-
boarding school.
Yeah.
My mom was very involved, and she's a teacher and very involved in our education and everything.
That's cool.
So
it's cool. And then for you personally, you got to a point where you were sensing a call into mission and ministry. What was that journey like for you?
yeah, I'd almost say it wasn't that. It was different. It was in the sense that, like, I guess you could say my testimony in short was my junior year of high school, going into, and you're starting to make these big decisions about what's next after high school, and you've got the American way, the American dream, the go to college, do your thing. One of the things, like, I got good grades and didn't have trouble in school, that part. So I was just thinking, like, oh, what's the highest paying degree I could go into, and just go to college and just on a track. And I'm a good kid, Christian kid, I would say, for the most part. And but I had this, anyway, without getting into all the details, had this moment where I kind of had this, I guess you could say, God speaking to me, just kind of this provocation or challenge that, like, I was making all these huge decisions for my life, and I wasn't really including God in that process. But the follow-up, harder conviction point on that was, I also didn't have that kind of relationship with the Lord to include him in that journey. So it was,
And you
like,
had that awareness.
that, in a sense, I had that moment. It was through my youth group and some without all the details of that, just this realization and revelation, like, oh man, one, I need to include God in these such huge decisions that are going to shape the course of the rest of my life. And two, how do I include God in that when I don't know him that well?
Yeah.
I just know he exists and have faith.
So how did you?
And so that was just, I was like, well, I'm going to do the best thing I know that I've seen work for a lot of people around me and stuff, is I'll go do YWAM, like, at the time. So I was like, and again, I wasn't like in some kind of prayerful mode going, where do I go? It was, okay, I love to surf, so I'm going to go to Australia. And so I got on a plane out of high school and went to Australia and landed in Australia. Very much, I guess you could say it's like selfish in a good way, but it was selfishly more about me than it was about missions. It was about, like, hey, I need to, like, really take a season to really kind of build a foundation in my faith and get to know God and get to a place where I can feel confident that, like, oh, okay, this is really where God is calling me to, so to say, or what who he's made me to be.
There's a lot of people that I would say that's been their reason for going into YWAM.
Oh, totally.
And it's such a beautiful, almost a gap year experience that helps people be grounded in their life with God, and then opens them up to the possibility of how God might be guiding them, leading them into the future, which includes mission or a life of missions, which is, I think, what I love knowing, that that's a goal, is that people who've gone through the DTS are starting to see my whole life is on mission.
Yeah.
Whether I'm on a location of a YWAM base or whatever. Yeah. So you went to Australia because, of course, surfing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
No, it wasn't. And it was a great experience where I landed, and very youth-focused ministry. And that's, again, it was kind of one of those things that, like, where I just felt like God unlocking vision for impacting youth culture and stuff that I, in high school, really cared about. Had, to my tech side, like in my bedroom in high school, coded and built my first website.
That's
launched
just
it.
So cool. Come on, what year would that have been?
It was 2002, so it wasn't quite like 90s or anything.
Right,
but it was 2002.
Didn't you go buy a Mac and was your first or something?
Yeah, still. I mean, that's a very key part of my journey, along parallel to this, especially with where I sit now, and the work that I do was when I'm pretty sure I was 12, 13, maybe 13. I'd have to do the math on when I was born, and I was working this job at the local newspaper, which sounds like I deliver newspapers and make minimum wage. This is still today. I actually came across a photo of it yesterday. I was scrolling through of me doing this job. We were stuffing advertisements into the middle. My brother Jordan did it. And it was all based on speed, like how many you did. And so my brother and I were really good at like optimizing and getting faster and faster. And so back then we're making like 35 an hour or something. And so there was a limit to how many hours we could work. So we were making a couple $100 a week, but not working very much. And we're like 12, 13 years old.
That's incredible.
So anyways, with that, funnily enough, I didn't necessarily have all the money to buy the computer yet. I was just starting working. My parents co-signed on a loan to, I think it was like for $1,500 to buy what was Steve Jobs came back to Apple and launched this iMac. And it was the first ever computer that you could plug a video camera into and edit. And it was this kind of like which we're seeing now when we get to the AI discussions, this bringing sort of the closing of the gap of what's possible with technology and creativity.
Yeah.
That a year before, you had to have these massive studios with these multi-deck recorders and things to edit a video, to put music to it, to put titles to it, all this kind of stuff. And so my parents owned this Sony Hi8 video camera that could plug in with FireWire. That was the cable. I don't know if those still exist, but plug it into this iMac computer with iMovie version 1, and I could like take those clips of us surfing and put them on a timeline, just drag and drop with this little mouse, and put the music I had, can I say illegally downloaded off of Napster, and put the titles to it and like show my friends who are just like their minds are blowing, my mind's blowing, because a year earlier you just couldn't do that without like all the fancy equipment and fancy cameras and stuff.
Fun signal to one of your key areas of talent is being a technophile, right?
Yeah.
Always pushing into what's new, what's current, what's possible now that wasn't possible before.
Yeah.
And then I think over time you started to see how could that tech be furthering the work of God in the world, which is just so cool. So backing up to your YWAM experience, 2 of my sons did that exact same DTS in Newcastle. And I got to go to Newcastle last summer and be at that like church, go see the base. It was really kind of fun to walk in the place that the Norrises had walked and that the Caliguire boys had walked. So what kind of work were you doing there? It was at Youth Street, right?
Yeah. So I kind of, again, it wasn't this, I feel this call to long-term missions and go to the nations and unreached people groups and all this kind of stuff. It was this real tug to youth and just seeing the youth culture that I'd grown up in Hawaii, the struggles, the challenge, not that it was unique. It's all around the world in the U.S., like just the challenges that young people were facing and that I faced, but thankfully having really great friend circles around me, great community, didn't fall into a lot of those sort of situations or crowds, but especially surf culture has a real like grip when it comes to the whole idea around like, oh, everybody's doing drugs wasn't some random phrase. It was what all the young people do. Like it's actually very real. And all the things that go with that I was always like, oh, why can't we surf and have fun and not do that kind of stuff? And how could I influence youth culture in that way? And that's part of what my website was at the time, worst domain name ever. I'm not even going to say it on this podcast.
Oh, come on. Please.
No, because it'll take too much explaining. But it was sp02ger.com, which was the number 02ger. 02 was the year. And then together it was kind of this thing. It was kind of a play on sponger was like a derogatory term for bodyboarders. And we were primarily bodyboarders, but surfed as well and did it all. And where I grew up was the birthplace of bodyboarding as a sport. And so anyways, it was me like, oh, I want to share this, but like show just how fun, awesome surfing is, but doesn't have to have all this other stuff that
right.
is usually surrounding the culture. You don't have to do
else,
this.
right.
It's not all about this, what you see in the magazines, the surf magazines that we don't need to get into. And so, yeah, anyways, that's what I was. So when I landed in Newcastle, I was passionate about this youth ministry stuff that I wasn't even aware of. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do. So I was like, I'm just going to stay. I'm going to be a part of this pioneering thing they were doing skate and surf and sports and just creating a place for young people to come and
and that's another part of your sort of personality DNA is you like pioneering things.
Yeah.
Like things that are new. Mm-hmm. There's this, I love that. And then you were figuring out how to bring creativity and tech and messaging to that.
Yeah.
Now, when did it switch over into like pure communications and stuff like that?
I think it was 2012 or 11. It was somewhere around there. So I was newly married at the time. And it came from a place of kind of in this tension of seeing the pain and the need in our city to grow this youth ministry. Like that we could only be in so many high schools and only have so many young people come to our programs. But there was like another, 30, 40,000, another 40 high schools in the region that we could just we didn't have capacity to reach.
Right.
And especially I don't think sadly the stats have changed anything. They've potentially gotten worse. Especially in Australia, it's kind of one on the higher level is the whole issue of teen suicide. And it was a weekly thing that we faced. Thankfully, never in our ministry, but always sort of one degree of separation from it, where we're hearing of this, like we can see the face, we know the name of the person who had taken their own life.
So heavy.
And so it was this like that heaviness of going like, we have to like, how do we grow? And seeing also at the same time, it's also seeing how fruitful what we were doing was in so many categories and ways. So I was going, that like frustration of, for the kind of Christianese or Bible verse of it is the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few kind of thing. And so that was a tension I was living in, but then also as a ministry, we were grappling with of like how like we really feel this kind of draw to grow. The need is great. How do we do that? How do we engage this next generation in the message and to come and participate and be a part of it in our city and in their cities that have the same issues, right? How do we grow? I was very much in the multiplying of the youth ministry at U Street. I'd gone and helped train a team in Mexico to do it and all around Australia. We'd done it in Indonesia, all these different countries, and been seeing how fruitful it was even in those contexts. And so but in saying all that, my transition to then work full-time more in the communication space was totally out of left field. Because I was so deeply entrenched in U Street and youth ministry.
Actual ministry.
That it's one of those things that like, obviously the more you do something, that's what you're known as, like Mindy Soul Care, right? Even people that don't know you would be like, Mindy, what does she do? Soul Care. It's like synonymous. So is Daniel U Street. Anywhere I went, not in like I was known in any way, but like that if you knew me, that's what I did, youth ministry, U Street. And even for myself, I was like, oh, well, I wouldn't overtly necessarily think this, but like, oh, I'm too important for this ministry. If I removed it, how would it succeed or something like that? Like I carry responsibility or weight or whatever it is. And so it was this kind of thing that like, I know we need to invest in this. How do we communicate with this next generation as a ministry? We need to really build a team around this. I'm all for it. I'm like one of the leaders that's like, yes, we need to do it. Until my wife and I are in New Zealand actually that Christmas, and we're just praying into the next year, and just felt like the Lord was like, I actually want you to do it.
the royal we became.
The royal we,
you.
like, let's all do it together. Someone volunteer and put up your hand and I will applaud you from a distance kind of thing. And so thankfully it wasn't just me. It was actually, there was already another dear friend of mine still to this day, Robbie, took on the like leadership of the team and department, which ended up just being such a, and we had our friend Scott too. He was the video production film storyteller. And so the three of us kind of took on this core team that I just remember going to Robbie and being like, I think I'm supposed to do this. And even to sort of the rest of the leadership, me going like, I don't think we'll even let me or want me to, like, because what about you, Street? But it was very much this, like, everyone was like, no, this is actually, this is right. And so I just laid down my roles and everything I was doing with that and kind of handed it on.
Big shift.
Pioneered a youth ministry, like a leaders training course, and passed that on and moved into this like completely unknown. Was like, okay, Robbie, Scott, what do we do? How do we, there's this thing called Facebook. Apparently young people are using it. Twitter. So it was Facebook, Twitter. Instagram wasn't out yet.
No.
I guess there was YouTube. And I think that was it. And then obviously we had a website, which was awful at the time, that we had probably spent so much money to develop. I know we did. And it was worth it at the time too, but it was awful and it was all custom developed. And so it was like, we just kind of jumped in and we're like, okay, let's do the default. Let's make a promo video, or let's do all the things you do kind of thing. And just kind of went into this exploration of like understanding communications more and what does it mean to understand your audience and meet your audience where they're at on the mediums they're using, and how do we communicate this message that we have?
Yeah.
And call young people to it. Say, hey, there's a space for you. You should come. You should join it and be a part of it.
It's so cool because I feel like you have so much domain knowledge now and expertise in the nuts and bolts of marketing. But the animating idea underneath it for you is very clear. It's like, what is the message? And you have some pretty key tenets that you always call us back to, right? Like, just because you're saying stuff doesn't mean you're communicating. That's maybe not verbatim what your point is, but I think
there's just a lot of noise out there. And I think a lot of it does come back to, especially with social media, and a lot of what we consider communications, not communications. It's just noise. And just, it's kind of, again, this is what we learned, like Robbie, myself, Scott, and through this journey of like, and running communication schools and bringing in experts and just making this our main thing. We weren't experts, and we became experts in a lot of these areas. And one of the key foundational pieces was just even understanding the kind of, we all sort of know this, but we don't necessarily apply it, is that communications requires feedback and it requires a clear response. And that's not really thought through online. It's usually like, I communicated because I posted a video up, whereas communicating is, what's the message of the video and the outcome and the response you're trying to get, and is that happening? And are you measuring feedback to see that happen? And you could say views and likes are parts of feedback. They're kind of.
They're passive.
But and they can kind of be little tiny markers, but it's ultimately like, well, what are you trying to achieve with a video? Unless it's just pure entertainment, and then maybe your outcome is ad revenue or trying to be popular or something like that, followers, then that's your outcome. But if that's not, if you're trying to like grow something and get more volunteers or donors or leads or sales or in whatever, it's all the same. That's your response you're after. And so if you're making a bunch of noise and that's not happening, and you can't tie, or maybe it is happening, but you can't tie feedback to it. You can't say it's because of what you did. It's just, you're growing, you're spending money over here, you're doing stuff. If you can't connect the dots, you're not actually communicating. You're
spending
noise.
money over here and you're having results.
You have a good product and you have a good, obviously people are joining you, but it doesn't mean you're communicating. And you can still be successful without communicating. Because you can, if something's really good and it somehow gets through. But when it's really, what I'm passionate about is unlocking that, unlocking clear communication for individuals as well as businesses and organizations.
And now you've gone all over the world and helped other YWAM bases really assess their communications, understand how to improve it, all that kind of stuff. I like that you're passionate about doing that well. It's good. It's good. So, so along the way, you intersect with our boys and they realize what a boss you are with these things. And they're like, Mom, you got to go talk to Daniel. And I'm like, okay. So hence we were talking. But how old were your kids at that time? Because I think we're coming up on 5 years that we've been working together. So they were quite young when we first started.
Yeah. So my son's 9 now. So yeah, he would have been like 4.
Like 4.
My daughter's 12.
Yeah.
8, yeah.
So I think your journey as, you know, as we've worked together now these years, and it's been such, you know, I mean, sometimes it's a little cringy when I think about some of the things that we had worked on before early on in the soul care journey. Like,
okay, I've worked on a lot of cringe things. It's fine.
But I feel like we're in a better place now. We're going to continue to expand, and we'll talk about some of that. But I'd love, because I'm thinking a lot of people that are, I hope, listening to our conversations here, find themselves in places where they're trying to balance the care of their own soul with a really missional call and very, I don't know, high stakes things that we might be involved with. And my observation is that you, as a husband and as a dad and as a Christian who cares about the mission of God in the world, and that shows up in a variety of your clients, like, when did you first maybe wake up to that, like, oh man, it could have been way before I knew you, but like, when did this idea, like, oh, I've got to be well myself. My soul has to be good. You might not have used that language. When did you first start to realize that that was an issue in Christian service or in marketplace either?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it's like it was a moment but the thing that probably comes to mind first was getting married and starting a family myself, because I think that there's two, not that it wasn't important before, but it was less like I could say from my own journey, before I was married and had kids, I was a heck of a lot more selfish and self-absorbed in so many ways and didn't care and had a lot more, I guess, free time or space around to even just blaze and crush and do a bunch of stuff. And I still had so much free time. I still look back to then. I was like, man,
what did I
do? Like, I did a lot, but at the same time, I wasn't going to burn out as a single 20-something-year-old. And it also, the ramifications didn't affect anyone as much in that same way, that when you start to get married and you have to care about other people, another person, and then other people around you, it starts to reflect. You start to realize stuff that was there before. Because again, I'm not saying before it wasn't something, but it wasn't. I'm so grateful for marriage in that sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm grateful for, I'd always say that even when I started traveling and training, I'm like, the reason I'm here and this is so good is because of my wife, not as like a token I'm thanking my wife, but like because of is such a huge part of how I've grown, right?
Yeah.
It's like having someone who's championing me, challenging me, and is making me stop thinking only about myself as much.
And it's a gift.
And it's such a gift.
Yes.
And it slowed me. It did, especially because, interestingly enough, and I'm so grateful for this, my communications, like, I guess, ministry, the work I was doing really accelerated right after I got married. Or because, like I said, or a couple of years after when I'd made this transition. Whereas if I'd done this before, I probably would have just been like, it's one of those things that, like, I think it's where I started to understand, like, let your yes be your yes and your no be no. Don't, like, just because something's good, you shouldn't just say yes to it. Whereas before I would have, like, especially like, oh man, as a young person, what an opportunity. People want to fly me around the world and I get to go to all these cool countries and train and do this fun stuff. Like, you're inviting me, sweet. This is like getting the invitations. And so I was like, this is so awesome. And I just want to say yes to everything. And so the more this was accelerating and the more these organizations were where the invites were pouring in, the more I could have easily just gone absolute bonkers. But obviously if you're married, you're not going to go travel. Well, not obviously, some people do that. But I wasn't going to, and my wife thankfully wasn't going to let me do that, especially as we started having young children.
Yeah, not a good idea.
The gift part of that I recognized a couple years into it was that the slowness actually was part of the fruitfulness in the end of I would have rushed ahead thinking these are all the things I need to teach and train and get, and like, here, this is what every location you need to do. You need to do this. But the slowness of it helped me, again, not just reflect on myself, but reflect on the work I was doing more. I was more thoughtful through it and what is working, what's not working. It's kind of like that slowness to it that I really was able to go, oh, that's the reason. As I identified what are these keys to growth that I was able to train in, that if you simplify it down, just doing 3 or 4 trips in a year was exponentially more fruitful than if I had done 20.
That's great.
Which doesn't make sense mathematically. But what I reflected on back and forth, that was actually a key to the fruitfulness, was that, I don't know if I explained it super well, but like that side of it. So that's where it started to kind of unlock to me, like, oh, how do you have healthy rhythms and pace, and how am I actually doing? Having someone beside you all the time, kind of like very aware of how you're doing and asking you how you're doing, and vice versa. Like having that accountability that you do have with leaders and other people around you, but it's nothing quite
not
like
the
that.
same
Not
as
the same way.
Yeah.
That I was asking questions of myself and of God, like that I wasn't asking before.
Yeah.
That unearthed like I'm not actually doing that well. I do need to probably slow down. And it also came at this junction of being in full-time ministry for over a decade without ever stopping. Going straight into marriage, a very intense first year or two from a financial standpoint of our marriage, being in like negative broke missionary, not even just a broke missionary, like a way down here, negative broke missionary, debt. And starting your marriage like that was just high stress, high pressure on top of all that, while starting training schools and launching ministries and all this stuff that I just realized a year or two in, we were just like, we need to really like reset before we have kids, or we were, I think, just pregnant with Lily at the time, we need to reset and know, what does the next 10 years look like?
Really
we can't do that still going full pace. And that's where the concept of sabbatical.
I was going to say, how did that sabbatical thing happen? I think I was getting to know you somewhere around that time, because I think I was on a mailing list of a prayer team for you guys. And you had that airplane that was like,
fly the plane.
Yeah.
Yes. All the fundraising things we would do back then. That was our daughter was born in 2013, and this was 2014 really was, again, it was the kind of thing like brought on by my wife, Jess, like as an initial, like, again, my brain was just like, got to do more. And just that, like sowing that seed of, I think we need to do something. We need to like have a break of sorts before, and like really reset and see, God, what do you want for our family going forward? How do we, because you're kind of going for, when you get married, you've got these callings or visions, and you're going this, and you're needing to go, how do you do them together? And how do you draw them into being one? And going through that, and the tension and the all the stuff that goes with that, and the beauty of it. But so it was in that, again, it was through that provocation to like even ask the question. It didn't mean we were going to do it, or that I was going to actually agree with it in the end, but really then just even asking the question of the Lord, or asking the question of myself, and really asking the question, how am I doing again? Right. And so
who stops to do that?
Yeah.
Right. And in a ministry context, doesn't matter how you're doing. You got to get off and help everybody else.
Again, thank you, Jess.
Yes. Thank you, Jess.
For always pushing into things like that.
Yeah.
And continues to do that and it's so great. So anyway, that's where the idea of, not the idea of, I first ever heard of a sabbatical, but for me to ever consider it, came up, and we really felt like that was what we were supposed to do.
And how'd that go?
Pretty
I know
good.
the answer to this.
Yeah.
So it's like good to hear.
Really
but
good.
like,
I mean, I preface,
imagine that somebody might be listening who's been like, I've been blazing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And my spouse has been kind of knocking gently, like, hey, we need a different rhythm for a minute before we just barrel on into the next decade.
Yeah.
And it could be a little disorienting, a little scary. I've talked to people who are like, what the heck is a sabbatical, and why would I do it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll preface this to say, because there's really two real key parts that I've learned through the journey of us taking the sabbatical was, one is like my own journey to go do it and why we did it and like in process. But there's also the leader's side and the organizational side that even as I share this or say this is very much like hopefully it comes across as deeply nothing but honoring of those leaders because truly it was a very wonderful process. And it wasn't so much about like right or wrong or I agree or disagree. I think that's partly where I think the tension comes from, or where it gets messy sometimes, is people feel to do something and there isn't space for it in the organization, and they get angry, or that it's wrong that you don't let. And it's like, well, it's their authority and it's their thing. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's like, that's what I signed up for. It's what I agreed to. Like, and so it kind of comes back to this. There wasn't really a construct for sabbatical in the organization I was working with.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of organizations that have zero policy, or they're just
no policy,
in the process of putting that in place.
And I don't say that with the slightest bit of criticism. It's just that's just what it was. And so we kind of knew that going into it, that I had never known another leader to take one. And we didn't know how that would be received. And initially it was that kind of thing. Oh, it's not a thing. We don't have that. Yeah. Sorry. Like, you can maybe have an extra week of holidays. And again, that's just the thing that's there. It's not bad. Yeah. And it's obviously there. And so for us, it was like, that's not what we're really still. It comes back to this, like, who are we first going to be obedient to is what we feel the Lord is speaking to us. And whatever the ramifications are of that. So we went away and we're like, okay, Lord, is this really, really what you want us to do? Or is this okay, this little extra break or something like that? It's like, no, this is it. Well, this is the implications. We may have to kind of step down from leadership and step away from the ministry completely, and then kind of decide to go back, figure out what's next, because that's the policy, or just what it kind of sits in there. And so we kind of went back into those discussions, kind of not in a disagreeing or combative way, more just purely like, we have to be obedient to this. And if that's what it means, that's awesome. So be it. Yeah. Like, we love it, and we love our leaders and those people, deep friendships and love and respect. And so there's nothing like this was, and thankfully in those discussions, there was an openness that came about in I guess you could say what would you call it? A exemption, or we're kind of released to do it. And we went and took
with their blessing
and everything. Yeah. And very much so. And I'm so grateful again to them, like to our leaders at the time, like for that blessing to go do it, because it transformed our lives.
But what a courageous move for you guys to discern that, stay strong in that, respectfully honoring the organization, saying, we know this isn't a policy, but we really feel this is needed for us. Mm-hmm. If it means we have to walk away, then so be it. But we honor you, we love you, we bless you. I mean, I love all that. But all of this was before the pandemic, before a lot of the things that have provoked sabbatical-related conversations in ministries and businesses. We see it all the time. So really kudos to them for hearing you out, for valuing you and your, what you could bring. And then creating that, whatever you were calling it, like an exception or whatever, just to try. Mm-hmm. And I hope maybe others downstream have also benefited from your example there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how was that time away? Was it helpful?
It was great. I could have used some soul care, resources. Because I wouldn't say we were the most strategic with it, or it's one of those things, we had all these grand visions for it or something that we didn't come close to achieving those, but it was still so transformational. A
season of some rest,
it was very much a season of rest, season of just get our finances in order, a season of also building relationship more with my wife's side of the family. Because obviously we'd gotten together and married on the other side. We got married in her home, but as far as our marriage and early relationship was all we can't get further. Vermont to Newcastle, Australia is this on the map. And so having that season for me to get to know her parents more and her sisters and family and around and also just get to know where she's from more. That kind of
It's just how you get to know her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to have that time was just really special and
That's
meaningful,
great.
and that definitely set us up when we got back for just so much more success as a whole. Like
fun.
that we could actually, I think we probably would have burned out or wrapped up a year later if we kept trying.
It's true.
Versus served another 4 or 5 years there before our next move, which is back to Hawaii.
Yeah. And so let's see. I feel like I already know Jess, and I don't think I've actually met her in person ever. I feel like I know her.
I think you did briefly when you were in Hawaii.
Is that? Oh,
think
that
so.
could be. That could be in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's true. At the coffee shop
Yeah.
at the banyan tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. My bad. Okay, so that maybe is why I feel like I know her. So eventually, you ended up taking all of these great gifts, moving back to Hawaii, and then getting involved in the ministry there. But then starting out your relationship with HubSpot as a specialist? What are you? To HubSpot?
Solutions partner.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes.
What way
Yes.
to go. I should know these things. So you're a solutions partner for HubSpot. And then when you and I first talked, and I was at the earliest stages of moving out from where I had been and then moving full-time into soul care, what are some of the things that you've observed about that transition with soul care over these last 5 years?
I think, it's really transitioned in the last few years from like a concept or a vision with not any like meat to it.
Right.
Like no resources or no like ideas of resources, like names on resources, but not necessarily still like the meat to it of like or an actual practical helping beyond how you helped as an individual through
Right.
your speaking and engagements. And so it was kind of like, here, let's say a lot about soul care, but not really a clear way to engage.
Equip people,
Equip people and really serve people. And that's been and also not even knowing if it was a felt need at all. Like, we knew, but you don't really know until is your audience going to respond, right?
Yeah.
So I think early on it was like, and it was hard because I don't think we did get much response early on. It wasn't like a lot of momentum or growth, but that's the thing you see now where it's like, there's just no question that this isn't just we care about it and we want everybody to care about it. It's like, oh no, everybody's having this conversation. Everyone does care and people are responding.
Yes.
Especially as the more and more we've built a culture of feedback around what we do with soul care, the more we're seeing like just daily our inbox is bombarded.
Isn't that just cool?
So it's like we're bombarded by new contacts joining us. That's one thing. But then we're also bombarded by contacts saying, this was meaningful in this way. Mm-hmm. This impacted me in this way. This is why I signed up for this. That's just undeniable now. So it's just like, oh, no. Okay, this is not something, this is growing. This is something that people are really crying out for. It's now, how do we do that more effectively, right? And more sustainably.
Yep.
And scalable.
Yeah. And I just see that thread in your life of like the early adoption of technology, early adoption of things, but a desire to scale, even U Street or DTSs, or how do you take something to the, not for its own sake, not out of an ego-driven thing, but out of a recognized need that thing is out there. Yeah. So that feedback has been a big part of our last, even just like 6 to 8 months. It seems like that's been blowing up.
Yeah.
Josh helped us create some mechanisms for that too. So now we're at this juncture where there's a new shiny toy. We're just going to call it AI. And tell me some of the things that you're having fun with and seeing possibilities for with AI that relate to us or your other businesses. Like, how are you seeing this future unfold, like that first Apple computer?
Well, it's interesting thinking about the Apple computer because it's just been in this past week that I've it feels like I'm back in that room again in the same way. But all that to say, I think I'll probably start the conversation, especially around AI, recognizing the fact that there is this, any technology is going to be used. It's
for great good
for
or
great good
harm.
and great bad. And so I don't want to go through this going like, oh, we're just obsessed with AI and we love it and it's just amazing. I understand. I think even that's something I'm still navigating and have to live in that tension and discern. And that's the part where I want to be slower in our adoption of it and how we use it and how I do as an individual is understanding that.
Yeah.
And understanding there is a doom and gloom message out there. There is does this end up creating World War III nuclear craziness that the world is over in a year because of AI? All that's possible.
I know that's like hard to even believe that sentence you just said it. And it's like, well actually.
So I guess it's kind of like, let's get that out of the way. I'm just choosing because I can't stop that. Like there's nothing I could do.
We can do to.
I can be like those people that just want to post on their Instagram 24/7 about their cause and think that's going to bring a change. It just doesn't. There are other ways to bring change. So I'm not saying I couldn't impact that or bring change, but it's too big of a train that like if that's going to happen, I'm not the guy that's going to fight that battle and somehow topple AI from its horrible ramifications. So I think this kind of goes into a lot of areas recently in my life is like, there's this, especially in recent years, I just want to always posture myself as much in a way that is hopeful and optimistic about the future, my children's future, while recognizing there's going to be real challenges my children are going to grow up around. There's real challenges with AI. But I choose hope, and I choose optimism, and I choose to engage with it, not run away from it, not be a Luddite, as you'd call it, with technology. And I've chosen that back from because people had the same things with the early computers and the internet, and then a big part of my world in youth ministry was the whole world of social media and mobile phones. I mean, that's where that came about, was when I was in the throes of U Street and the impact that was having on young people's mental health and how to navigate and teach young people how to use these mediums wisely and through a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is one of the most talked about topics all throughout the Bible, all through Proverbs, is the power of the tongue, is how we use our words, is how we communicate. And so how we use these tools, basically, is like we can apply the same wisdom. So I've been kind of navigating that for a long time. So I think as we touch into AI, it's the same for me. I'm trying my best that while still staying in that tension to be hopeful. And when I think of my kids, I also want to be hopeful about their future with AI as a technology, that even though there'll be mess in the world still, because there'll be a lot of amazing things that come out of it. And there's a lot of potential, especially if we equip them in the right way and teach them how to use it and how to be wise with it. Yeah,
my friend Jason Malik, who I think you've met on calls here and there, he came in for an interview a couple of weeks ago. And we talked for a bit about AI in the sense becoming that mirror. It's like, what do we bring to it that allows the world to either be a much better place or a much worse place? And we can't control, as you're saying, who might be using it for great ill or great harm. But at least for our part and for our children and their children's part, how are we helping this become what it could? Yeah, it's good.
And that's where, like, I've been on about this quite a bit lately too, like on the topic of AI, even when I think about raising my kids, is I'm not rushing in to go like, here to my daughter, you need to learn how to use ChatGPT. And I mean, she already probably does, but she doesn't have it, but she knows about it, knows how it works. But I'm not trying to like teach those skills. I'm just more and more leaning into like, I want her to spend her childhood being a child and being more in the creative arts space. Yeah. Because I feel like that's really, and as we lean into what we're talking about with soul care and AI, is I think the people that are going to really succeed are going to be the creatives, are going to be the people that have good ideas and great ideas, because now the gap from those ideas to actually build them has just gone, whew. So just like with the video stuff, it's like, I was a kid who had great ideas and had a fun thing to film in surfing that was beautiful and people wanted to see. But a year earlier, the gap was too big. I could have never done it. Mm-hmm. And so I could never be creative with my video camera. I could, and then play it on my TV quickly, but no music or not edited. And so I'm just seeing that as like my daughter is an artist. She loves to paint and loves to draw, and my son does too and stuff. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff I want to encourage more and more, because I think that's going to be the most important foundation as you
the
kind of
parts
go forward.
that make us human.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Like
it's all of these. That's what I was discussing that with a friend the other day. It's that part, and then being just a kind person, a nice human. Like if we can teach them how to be, I think even in our education, our schools, and like, so with my kids' schools that I'm very involved in, I want to emphasize those things over how do you use technical skills and how do you use, like, I still am very massive believer and have this argument with my daughter all the time about math is still very, very important.
Very important.
Because it's teaching you problem solving skills and all this stuff. It's like, no, you will not need to know how to do the math when you're older. You don't now. You didn't 10 years ago either because of calculators. But you do need to know how to do math, as in do the process.
Yeah.
Not process, but do the process. And so teaching them more emphasizing character and humanity and that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's what I shared yesterday, a interview by I think it's the CEO of Anthropic, or one of the main sort of roles at Anthropic, where she was being asked about her degree was in the humanities or something like that. Right. And she was asked, like, if you could go back, would you not do that degree? And would you do more about, learn more about tech and AI kind of stuff? And she's like, her answer was basically like, she didn't say no or yes. She's like, well, it's a little more complicated. Let me explain that. Go watch it if you can find it. And at the end, basically saying like, no, I keep that degree. I think that's more important than ever, because it is in the workplace and how we use all this stuff. It's the people that know how to be more human.
Philosophy is going to matter. Yes. Spiritual life is going to matter.
Yeah. And how that comes out in the AI is going to be so apparent. And that's where you get, it's the people that don't know how to do that create the AI slop. Yeah. Right? It's the people that are lazy and are not really thinking things through, not applying wisdom and never maybe even had that. They just were taught the tools and taught that it can do that. And they just kind of throw every slop out there as they can. Ugh. So anyways, I've got lots of thoughts on this topic. I'm definitely, passionate about it, but again, remaining very like hopeful for what's possible. And especially in the last 2 weeks, I feel like
you got to at least tell this story of what has happened in literally 2 weeks.
Well, I'd say there's two, again, I feel like I keep trying to draw it back broader. In the last couple of years, there's been, I think we're on the second phase of what's going on with AI. The first phase was the adoption and the launch of ChatGPT, which was this like, oh my gosh, there's this box I can type something into and just the answers it spits out are unbelievable. And the stuff it'll write for me or reformat a spreadsheet or stuff that in my freelancing work that I do and work for Soul Care, that literally within 12 months, tasks and my workload within a week, the things I used to do, now I was like doing them 50 times, 100 times faster. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, this is insane. I can now do 10 times more work in a week, but without burning out, without the more hours. I was actually just because I was no longer scouring Google to figure out how the heck do I create this formula in a spreadsheet so I can reformat it to import it to a CRM or something like that. It's like all these things are now just so easily done for you. Yeah. You can take messes and make it clean. Yeah. And you just had access to so much knowledge, not always true knowledge. You had to, but that was Google.
You like this, Google's the same
this isn't a new concept that is like, oh, AI messes up. I'm like, humans do too. You have to, I think it's an important, again, wisdom. That's where AI slop comes in, is the people that don't apply that there's facts and there's stuff that just gets spit out as facts. You've got to seek truth and it takes time and there's got to be more to it. And it's like the first time I ever tried to ask it something about taxes and it gave me some rule on something and I was like, oh, that's really helpful, but I'm going to dig a little more because that's implicational. And I dug a little more and I was like, no, it wasn't right. That was based off of old state tax laws or something. Yeah, so I was like, don't take your tax advice from it kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, that's changing more and more because they're getting smarter, right? So, but it still comes to this thing of like, wisdom. Wisdom and always check. And so this idea of the early ChatGPT and this early
that first
assistant
phase,
that was so powerful, where I remember I was at a HubSpot conference in Boston, hearing this awesome guy teaching on, like, I remember going to the conference going, oh, they're going to make this all about AI. My eyes are rolling, like, this is going to be all about AI.
Blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. I want to learn. I want to do all this other fun stuff. I get it. ChatGPT is fun. I left the conference going, I just need to do a bunch of stuff on AI now. And it clicked for me. But anyways, I got this great framework that I spent those last 2 years
I remember you,
around, just that I still kind of teach on with AI, that I think is, again, it's sitting back and applying the wisdom piece to it. So the wisdom that this guy taught was that AI is really great when you look at it as you start with a human-inspired idea and you use AI to assist you in it, and then you human finish it. So it's still this hamburger of a human thing where AI is in the middle. Even though AI, and that's where AI slop is, I'll keep using that phrase, is when AI is all of it. Like, get AI to come up with your creative ideas, get AI just to do it, and get AI to just spit it out and publish it. And that's probably going to be terrible slop. It's going to get more and more convincing and more good slop, but it'll still be slop. But there'll still be that piece to it. And that's the hopeful view of it in the future. But it was taking on that kind of look. And again, it's been revolutionary for every element of the work that I do. And as I've put that parameters around it and used it in that way over the last 2 years. But it's just in the last 2 weeks, I think this is where we're going into this. I don't think anyone's labeling it as AI 2.0 or anything like that. But it's this shift from ChatGPT, this like a helpful chatbot that does some stuff for you and can answer all your questions and write stuff for you, to now, okay, AI is now able to actually like do the real hard work. And do it really well. Not the hallucinations it was always doing. Not saying it doesn't ever do that anymore, but it's getting to the point now where, you're just seeing that a lot less. And it's starting to get into the, like, again, it's that I couldn't have edited a video a year later. Now a little 15-year-old kid in his bedroom can edit cool videos like these $1 million companies used to have to do. And that's sort of what's that convergence that is happening with AI's ability to, there's two parts to it, is like they come in three categories. There's still the chat, there's still that thing, right? And all the AI, Gemini, Claude, which is the best. And I don't have any affiliation with Anthropic, and it's not a political stance by any means. It's just so much better. And Gemini is really good they all have kind of strengths except for ChatGPT nowadays. And, but they all have that chat thing, right? The basic kind of thing, and they have their varying levels of how you use it. Then you got these two other categories, which are kind of like blended in together. And one is the coding part. And that's where so much of the internet and communications and apps and platforms, Facebooks, they're all built on custom, wild, crazy code that is a foreign language beyond any foreign language that ever existed. Like I've always had from a distance, like understanding of like, oh, like I said, I kind of custom coded my first website, HTML, basic code. But everything's built on these coding languages. And I pride myself. I'm not a developer. I just can't go deep into that world. It takes such a depth and a skill to do. But that gap, again, just like it took that depth and that skill to edit videos with these massive equipments and computers and setups and expensive cameras, it went in. That's what we're seeing already accelerate greatly, is this ability for you to have a creative idea and for it to then go and do complex work. And walk you through with the knowledge of how to do the task. So like, I want to launch an app or custom create a website. I know it can custom code and you can do the vibe coding, but actually what are the steps to get it live in a real platform in a real way? It'll give you the knowledge and walk you through it all and put it up there and do all the work. And so it's just this gap that is shrinking very quickly. And then the other part of that, which is connected to that, is this whole area of, across the platforms, they're called AI agents, but it's this idea of that AI can now go do tasks. You can train it to do skills like go and check this and do this and bring it back to me and then do this, or take all of these spreadsheets, get all the data, bring it back into this, create this spreadsheet, do this, do that, do that. I could ramble on, but and so it's now, I think, getting to the point where it's not just accelerating our access to knowledge, which speeds work up, because so much of our work often, especially as knowledge workers in a lot of these spaces, was gathering, like writing and gathering information research took so much time that sped up. Now it's the like, okay, now how do you actually like build? That's speeding up. And that's what we're seeing. Like, I made the switch to Claude a couple weeks ago, and I feel like the kid in the, like, where I'm launching my first website, in the sense, even though I've launched hundreds of websites in my life, and I've never wanted, because I'm not wanting to be a developer, I've never wanted to market that as a thing I do. Right. It's like more, I'll do it occasionally, Soul Care we need to move the site, so I'll do a bit. But it always felt like I was and this is, I'm sure, for a lot of business owners and organizations, you're like chained up, you're in shackles of, like, whether it's your budget, your team skills, your capacity, whatever it is, because you're like, oh, we would love to have an app, or we would love to have a website, but or we have a website, but we'd love it to do, like Soul Care, we come across this all the time. We'd love to have a way where our resources were categorized in a certain way and easy to search for and all this stuff. Oh, but there's not something out of the box that fits what we want it to do. That's for this or for this. We're unique in this way. Everyone's unique in some way. And so, well, yes, that's possible, but we'd have to get
custom
developer to come in and pay them, or however much money it was, and then the time, the project, and then it probably breaks and maybe lasts for a little bit. Isn't quite what we want. We've all gone through that, and now we're kind of on that point where it's like, I'm discovering very quickly, like, what's possible, like, I mean, within the HubSpot ecosystem, but within the app, like iOS, iPhone apps, that I've, within 2 weeks, without this being my main focus, like, again, it's like all just part of what I'm doing. I'm still having to, I think a lot of people at the moment are having to, like, how do I juggle my day job while I also try to stay on top of this? I've launched successfully 2 apps on the Apple App Store. One for Soul Care, a journaling app that's live, Soul Care Journal.
So fun.
And that's based off of our physical 90-day journal resource. And then for myself, I was like, oh, I call myself a reluctant coffee snob. And I'm
not sure it's reluctant anymore.
No, it's still reluctant. I try to be nice about it. I did drink that coffee at that breakfast this morning.
I did notice that. I was worried for you. I thought it might,
I didn't finish it.
Break out in hives.
Yeah, I didn't finish it, but
neither
I did drink
I.
it.
Yeah.
And so I love coffee. So I have an espresso machine at home and a setup. And it's kind of funny. Like, my website is about my freelance work, but it's mostly coffee and mostly coffee traffic. But I consider those one and the same. That's another topic.
The same, yes.
And that's been a big growth area in the last year too, which AI has assisted me to accelerate what I do with coffee as a hobby, but how that blends into my work. And why was I saying that? One of those blanks.
Well, that was the other app that you built.
That's the other app I built. So
yeah.
I've only gotten into espresso, funnily enough. I've actually worked back in my Australia days, worked in a cafe, and so learned how to make espresso and lattes and flat whites and all that stuff years ago, but never did it at home and never carried that on. So I have an understanding, and I have an appreciation when someone makes a good one versus a not good one.
Yes.
The reluctant coffee snob. All my friends around me were like legit coffee snobs and made amazing coffee. And so I'd always have one in my hand or go into a coffee shop that I'd be led into, and I'd be like, wow, this is amazing. And I've learned so my wife and I got a proper espresso machine and a nice setup. It was November or something, so not super long ago. And I learned very quickly, wow, espresso is like dialing in your shots is actually quite complicated. Let's say you have one of those automatic machines and you're happy getting a really bad shot, which most people are happy drinking bad coffee. That's fine. But if you want a good coffee, you want a good shot, your son Josh and I have had these discussions around scales in coffee in your home. Like, should you like weigh? He's like, because he doesn't weigh his beans or weigh his shot or any of that stuff. And I'm like, that's fine. He's just like, I've got the scoop, so it's the same every day. I'm like, it's not. But that's fine. You like it and you enjoy it out the other end. That's fine. Anyways, to the point of the app, I was like, dialing, like you get a new bag of beans, and every bag of beans is different, what grind setting you put it on, all the stuff with coffee. And I was like, I've got to find a way to like log this.
I
need
love
like
this.
a way to know, like, so next time I buy that bag, what was the setting? Like how do you dial it in? So I quickly
create an app.
I know, again, not an original idea. Neither is the Soul Care Journal. There's lots of journaling apps on the App Store, lots of coffee apps in the App Store. I'm not thinking this is going to be I'm going to get rich. It was seriously just
For yourself.
These other apps are way too complicated, too much stuff, or they cost money. Why don't I, to teach myself how to do this? And so I just vibe coded this app to help me log my shots, record my beans. And so when I get a new bag of beans, I take a photo of it and put in what it is in, and it's got all my past beans. And then every morning I shot, and it's got the big timer, and I press it. And
it's exactly
you can go
what
on the
you
App
want.
Store. It's called Dialed Shots.
There we go.
And I've already launched like 4 updates to the app. Like
You're
the iterate. So
hilarious.
it's 2 things with this. It's like you can build, but then it's how you can iterate.
Yeah.
And how fast you can iterate.
Having worked at a tech company, it's like I had this developer account that I'd never really used. And the thought that Claude could, or probably others would have done it as well, but to walk you through not just developing the concepts into the code, into what Apple requires. And both our apps have been like reviewed by Apple and
They
approved.
approved it. So.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right.
So every morning I go to use the app, and I'm like, oh, I kind of want it to work this way.
That's
or
so
actually,
great.
my first review, I don't know who this person is, because my first version of the app didn't have like a button in it to submit feedback through my website through a form or anything. So the first review I got up on the thing was thankfully it was a 5-star review. So thank you to the person that left this 5-star review, but then they also list a whole long list of feedback that they wanted updated to it.
And you're like, those are great
I
ideas.
was like, thank you. Some people would leave all that saying 3 stars because it lacks all of this. And so thankfully I'd already built half of what
That's
the
so
person
good.
had said into the update, but I just keep updating it. And I was like, oh, this big timer circle, I had a little play button that was the start stop for the timer. I was like, why doesn't the whole circle be the button? Like I'm just like every morning. And so I'll just go to my computer and then submit it to Apple.
And then it's real.
And then the other part is the debugging or the glitches. Like, so it's also the correcting. So there's the iterating and improving, but there's also the like fixing.
That's
and being
crazy.
able to really go through and like, again, it's not just spitting out perfection right away.
Yeah,
You're
it's
able
great.
to fix things and go, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to, or it should have, or it glitched out here. And it'll go and find the error in the code and it will fix it for you.
That's just been so fun to
Yeah.
watch. And I do know, having worked at a tech company, how hard that stuff is.
Yeah.
So it's really been fun. All right, the last topic I want to bring up, which I may regret, is it has been fun learning from this culture index thing about different personality traits that each of us bring to our work.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been trained on this, and you've done a lot more, or at least you've been
That's a stretch to say train.
you've had a coach who has been trained in this and has helped you on another team that you work with really heavily. So you're more familiar with it. And then I had done the assessment itself back as part of a board that I was serving on. And so I still had my result. And so one of the dynamics between the two of us has been like your description of your culture index. It made me think of that in talking about the coffee. Is that is, go ahead, explain what it is and like, why is it that way?
I said, I'm not necessarily the expert on it.
I'll say what I remember.
You say what you remember. Because again, I was saying that before. I need to revisit it because it's been a while.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
It's like when I saw this, I was like, now I've worked with you. I've known you relationally for longer than this, but worked with you for these 5 years. And it's like the slogan or the tagline for your culture index is Master Craftsman. And I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense because there's a love for precision and for things being done right and a very strong drive to finishing a thing. And you've just been such a gift to our whole team. Like you bring that that drive, that energy in a lot of places. And then I was telling you on the way over here, I was recently at a gathering where somebody who knows this culture index thing looked at my results and she's like, wow, I've never seen, there's like 2 categories down at the bottom of the top thing. I don't even know all the right things, but I think one is called logic and one is called innovation or something. And she's like, you're like a 9 on that innovation thing. She goes, that's like a bell curve. You're like way out here on that. It's not even just like one like stair step beyond 8 or 7. This is like whatever they call that, standards of deviation. She's like, how do you even like sleep at night? Like, that means you must have constant ideas. And all I could think of is how I've tortured you and Josh and the rest of the team. And I do think that many good ideas have come as well, but they're just, I live in a world of so many ideas and a constant sense of like, what else could we do and how else could we serve people and what else could soul care do? And so, I don't know. I just thought it would be an interesting thing for us to chat a little bit about, I think what we have in common, and probably more, but that logic one, we're both really strong. Like that's you're like farther. I think you were like at the end of the continuum, like you're like a 10 out of the whole thing, which must be the most minuscule percentage of the population that's over there. And I was like, yeah, that I think we tend to see the world very similarly when it comes to what's logical. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I must be driving you crazy with all my ideas. But you were then saying, say more about like for you, how ideas show up and where they're like, because your responsibility is so high, you'll have the ideas, but you won't say them.
Yeah, I'll say too. I mean, the starting point, I think, where it doesn't drive me wild, is it probably would have years ago, but I think any of this stuff, it all comes down to like trust and relationship. So true. It's like if you're the blazing just boss lady up there, and I'm your employee, and you're barking orders at me to do stuff and get it done by the deadlines, and there's no relationship or trust ever formed, or we haven't worked for each other for years, we know each other, that kind of thing, that would be different. Yeah, especially being remote, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Remote maybe has some of the strength too, because there's like a barrier. If we had to
you don't hear every single idea that I have.
See every idea and had to like. But I think also, I mean, that's even something I've had to navigate in my freelancing and remote work. Is also I've trained myself on. There's two areas of this. This one is being able to shut off. Like I think earlier clients that were like you, but in different ways. We're constantly like emailing, calling on the phone, texting, Sundays, Saturdays, all this. Yeah. Because it's soul care, I think you have those boundaries with it. Where I also learned my own boundaries since starting this. Where it was my first client, big client, that was a bad example of this. I was able to learn that lesson, like, I should maybe not like be checking my work email all through the weekend with this, and I probably shouldn't even have this kind of client. So it's also a good client fit, which comes to chemistry. I always talk, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but when I'm even sharing with others kind of some of the framework or how I do freelancing and choose who I work with and who I don't work with, which is a privilege that I feel like I'm at that place where I can do that now. Whereas sometimes, I just have to take whatever work comes my way.
Yeah, totally.
But I want it to more align with my vision and what I'm doing. Yeah. One of the big pillars of that, and what I'd say almost is like a scorecard that is part of even early engagements that I'm trying to discover is there chemistry? Is there trust? Is there relationship? If there isn't that, and there's just tension and it's like we don't actually like jibe together, we can't work together. It's like, let's just go our separate ways, like whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that is the foundation of what makes that work and what makes this work for sure. The other big one, and I think this is where even for myself, I learned early on, is I've always been a mega Apple fanboy. That came from my dad. So Steve Jobs, Apple Computers. And like I said, I got that first iMac computer. So in that, early on, even in my U Street days, I was always drawn to, and there was another friend of mine, actually, I remember when we were learning how to like run trainings and like when I was starting to train in U Street and do presentations and things like that, a friend of mine was like, "Oh, have you ever like watched Steve Jobs' iPhone keynote when he first released the first iPhone and thought about it in the way of like communication principles? Like, what is he doing? Like, actually analyzed it, not just from the point of like, because he was the first person to ever like make it where millions of people would tune in and watch the release of a computer. Like, no one cared." And all of a sudden he made people care. And it was because he was a gifted marketer and communicator, right? That's what made Apple. And so I remember just diving into, I just was devouring book after book about, like, one's called The Communication Secrets of Steve Jobs. And I can't remember the authors, but there's a lot of presentation secrets of Steve Jobs, like all these books.
That's cool.
And watching his keynotes and analyzing them and going like, and like trying to put them into my context of when I'm communicating this, like, okay, he frames this up in these, it's very deliberate. Every element, the font size, the way he does slides, the way that it's not by chance. Again, it's like very detailed stuff. All the greatest innovators I've always seen have come back to hyper detailed stuff. I think that's where I've doubled down on that strength. I heard one of the top guys at Disney Global Resorts and Experience. He's the director of global experiences or something like that. Heard him speak at the HubSpot conference too, and he was talking about the same principle around Disney and Disney parks. They're like wild attention to details, down to like how the trash cans are and all these things. It comes back to that. Again, I lost my train of thought with that, but
Master Craftsman. That's how we're making it.
Yeah, but it came back to, I think, one of my favorite. I'm not going to say the quote probably right. But it's around, Steve Jobs always had that principle as he was building out these computers and iPhones, was like that. It's like I guess I don't know who said this quote, but it's like the enemy of great is good, or like there's like you can have a bunch of it's the ability to say, the Steve Jobs quote's more about like saying no to a lot of good things.
Well, but I was just watching this recently when he came back to the helm of Apple.
Yeah,
and
they had been making so many products,
reduced,
and he just like stripped it down.
We let go of the really good things, but kept the great things.
Kept the great things. And so it's being able to, like, I think it's that, and then it's also just a principle in leadership of being willing to say no to good things, good opportunities to go teach, to go do this. Like, it's the soul care part within that. It's like, just because something is absolutely incredible opportunity doesn't mean you say yes to it.
Definitely.
And so I've always had that, both from an innovation standpoint and a work ethic standpoint, that I don't have a problem, saying no, or like just understanding that it's going to take 1,000 good ideas from you, that some of those are going to be great.
We'll find the ones
doesn't mean we're all going to do all of them, and we have limited capacity.
And
and that's where then that turns into my the responsibility piece, where I personally, and I have to grow in that myself, as far as like speaking up or saying ideas, because I'll sometimes withhold from what I have inside of me, because I carry that, like, if I say it, I therefore probably have to follow through and do it. Like, if I give this organization an idea, especially
emails during Advent,
especially if I know the implications are I'm the only one who knows how to do it on the team. Yeah. So like, I'll spit out all the great ideas if it's like, oh yeah, Josh can go do that. But if it's something like, you're right, like I'm like, let's do this great series, this idea comes out or something, or let's make an app or something, and I'm like, well, I'm the only person on the team that can do it, right? So I'm volunteering myself. So I've got to watch myself and be careful in that.
That's true.
But I guess then again, I can keep growing in how I just at least still spit out the ideas, and then just say, like,
I think that was one of the things
we'll do it.
I learned from mine, is one of the other categories is basically patience. Mm-hmm. And I have a fairly high patience one, which I hope is a virtue. Yeah. But it's like I can live in a world where there's a bazillion ideas, and we may or may not do any of them or do them right away, that's probably, or whatever.
I recognize that as a key piece that's made this work.
I think they're not demands.
I've worked with the teams and the leaders and the people that they don't have that. And so it's like they have the thousands of ideas and they're impatient. Yeah. And that's why they will text you or call you in the middle of the night. And it's all well-meaning. It's for a great cause.
Always.
It's amazing. It's urgent. And I'm like, I didn't even commit to be a part of that or do that. I think it's awesome, but just because it's awesome doesn't mean I'm saying yes to it.
Yeah. My dad.
I got a million awesome things to do.
Great sign in our kitchen that a lack of planning on your part does not necessitate an emergency on my part.
Yes, exactly.
Kept it prominently posted.
I need that.
Daniel, what else would you maybe say about your own soul care these days and how you maybe would speak to people who might be listening and like what are things in your season of life? Intense career, intense child rearing. What does that look like for you? And then maybe what encouragement would you give to others based on now being a soul care communicator as you are?
Yeah. I think I just had the word vision come into my head because I think and this came back to even our early marriage. And I think it's there's a sort of a patience to it, but it does all need to start vision for something, vision for your life, your work, your marriage, your family. And I think it's easy to go like, oh, this is how I operate now. But it was vision that my wife and I dreamt of and dreamt up years ago. Especially when we first moved back to Hawaii, we had this vision of like, I won't get into all the pieces, but even just our mobility and flexibility and the type of, and broadening my scope of organizations I'm serving and working with and all these different pieces, but then also how we work together and what she was doing, what I was doing, and our priority, and just even a part of our move was also around our priority around our kids and family. And so that was a major ingredient in the move. But it all started with vision. But it's taken 5-6 years to now I can go, okay, that's where I'm not saying we've arrived. Still lots of stuff at work, but it's like, oh my gosh, we're where we dreamt of being back then. When we moved to not a cheap place to move. And we financially went backwards even in the move. But that's part of our shift was God saying, I want you to trust me, take another leap of faith. It was good what we were, again, back to the good, great. It was good what we were doing in Australia. And we loved it, and it was fruitful, and it was comfortable, and it was great. But God had something greater. Would you take that leap, take that step into it wasn't unknown too. We didn't even have clarity around what we were going to do or where we were going to be, but started unlocking vision and dreams for what has brought about this ability to prioritize that it's taken hard work, taken some bad clients and taken some bad situations or things and walking all this through COVID, right? Which in our context was actually a real sweet and wonderful time, which I know for lots it wasn't.
Right.
But for us, that actually brought more of a family, obviously the time we got to have together and then with my wife's family and that created that where now there is we've worked really hard to, it sounds weird to say not work hard now. We do work hard now. But to have flexibility and boundaries.
Hard work is great. We all want to do good hard work. But
where there's the flexibility to, in a sense, support each other more and more and be with our kids and spend time with our kids and be home when our kids need them and navigate all that stuff while also carrying work and being fruitful in what we were doing. But it also comes back to, I'd say, in the last year, and this was kind of I turned 40 last year, so that was kind of a big milestone moment. My wife just turned 40 a few days ago. And so for me, going into my 40th year last year, I had this real word around consistency and was this kind of clear reminder that Daniel, you've participated in a lot of things and you've learned a lot of lessons and a lot of great things that work and are good for you. And when you do these things consistently, you are in a really good, healthy place. These are things as practical as exercise and journaling and reading the Bible, scripture, just some of these practices and rhythms that are things that I've done in seasons really well and strong. That I had this doubling down last year on these are not good for me, endlessly scrolling Instagram. These are good for me. And so how do I and create more? Yeah. How do I like go lean into the things that I know are good more and more and more? And that's what I know made last year, even after some tougher years, even before that, like so much better.
Yeah. And I will also say, and I've seen you kind of live when that was your word for the year, and how is, your ice baths and all other things you're telling
cold
us.
plunging, yeah.
Whatever they're called.
Cliche,
I don't know what they are, but yeah. I'm not, it's not my thing yet, but maybe never.
Okay.
But what was I going to say? I love how and then we'll just conclude, but I love how you have, in the world of marketing and communications, so much is built off of scarcity and fear. Mm-hmm. And but you've been a constant reminder around this, like our voice needs to be different. It needs to be not to be different for different sake. Our voice needs to be consistent with our view of the world, of the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. And that we're inviting people into things, but we're not here to be like, 8 hours left till your last thing. And
fire sale.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm grateful for how that consistency is shown up in your personal life, in your family life, in your life, the work we do with soul care, but even the way we do our work, keeping that constant threat of what's real, what's true, where is God at work in this, and how are we participating? All right, last thing, how can people learn more about you? I would say to your website, but you cannot go hire him. I'm just kidding.
Yes, you can. I can do so much more now.
I'm sure you can. And
I've opened up so much more now.
I know, whatever. I can't say highly enough how much you have been, helpful to me personally, and then to the work that our team is doing. So obviously, that would be a very strong recommendation anywhere. But on LinkedIn, you're there and active. How do we find your new coffee app and the Soul Care Journal app and all the things? And guys, anything you touch on soulcare.com or with our emails or anything. His first title was email guy. But now you're our
I got
CTO.
the email guy title from a different organization.
That's true.
I bring that around with me just for fun.
It's
the email
fun.
guy.
Okay.
Someone's like, don't you do emails? I'm like, no, but I guess sometimes.
How do we find you?
Well, it's just my name, danielnorris.com.
It's good.
And I mean, my name on LinkedIn, obviously. And the app is Dialed Shots.
That's so
if you
cool.
like espresso, you like coffee.
If you're an actual or semi-coffee snob.
Or just get it and open it once and play around on it and then go and give it a 5-star review and then delete it. That'll help me out too. No, not really. Because again, I'm not making any money from it. It's not that kind of thing. But yeah, my website, this is a big part of this year my word for the year is more around clarity and being clear. And so that's like even the whole coffee and how everything's kind of lining in who I am, what I do, and trying to be more clear on my own communication on what I believe and who I am and what do I do, and not just, do you do HubSpot? But like, what is my core message? So
well, the whole Soul Care team, we're all super fans for who you are and what you do. Thank you.
I'm a fan of Soul Care, otherwise I'd quit. No.
Thanks for joining us again. Yeah. And I'm glad you got to meet Daniel and put a face with a name that you would see on our website, on our About page. So take good care. We'll see you soon.